this is not my time. I've come to the realization this is not my time. So I've come here to announce that I'm suspending my campaign for President of the United States.
Bobby Jindal on Tuesday evening there announcing he's dropping out of the presidential race. You just heard him say it's clear it's not his time. Of course, there's still a whole lot of folks running for the Republican nomination, and it's worth asking, where does the race go from here? Perfect time to bring in our political panel. First, from Nashville, Tennessee, the news director of the Tea Party News Network, Scottie Nell Hughes, and checking in from Newsmax, Washington, political analyst and Republican strategist Ford O'Connell. So, Scottie Nell, still a wide variety of candidates, 14 of them. Who benefits from the Jindal withdrawal? Ted Cruz or somebody else?
Well, I think it can be split. I think, a lot of people think Ben Carson. Jindal had a very strong evangelical message, obviously not strong enough. So when you talk about dividing maybe the 500 people, I think that continuously tried to support him, maybe the majority of those people will go to Ben Carson. However, with the latest gifts that Ben Carson has had on international policy, Ted Cruz looks like he might be able to stand, as well as Marco Rubio. And obviously, big old Trump might be able to grab maybe a couple of those votes as well.
So you're talking about the front runners. Ford O'Connell, as we're looking at candidates who just don't see the support there, who do you think will be or should be the next to drop out?
Well, who would be the next to drop out is pretty much all of them but four, which would be Carson, Trump, Cruz, and Rubio. I just don't see a pathway for a lot of them, and frankly, it's going to come down to money. I would say if someone were actually to drop out, probably should be Rand Paul, because this is foreign policies heavy this cycle, and that's just not his thing.
All right, let's take a look at domestic policy, specifically polling numbers from the state of Colorado. Take a look at what the new Quinnipiac poll says on the Republican side. Ben Carson with a substantial lead at 25%, followed by Marco Rubio at 19%, Donald Trump at 17%, Ted Cruz at 14%, and undecided at 11%. Conspicuously absent there, Scottie Nell, Governor Jeb Bush. What do these numbers tell you?
Well, I can never figure out Colorado's. Those are one of those states, when they're probably high when they're doing this poll, which is why those numbers don't make any sense. And does it really matter about Colorado or any polls right now, considering I think the entire game changed when Paris happened. All of a sudden, people started not necessarily focusing on these domestic issues, and they started going, wait a minute, we are at war. We do have a terrorism war, and that's why you're seeing some of these candidates step up, and I think there's a chance. Ford just pointed out a couple of people that he thought were the top four, and Jeb not being one of them. Jeb's actually making a very good presentation right now. He has the strongest list of consultants when it comes to international policy and war strategy. And so I think he's going to try to make that play. But I think ultimately, JD, it's going to be the conversation we've had all along. The long-term player will be the person who has been about immigration and closing and securing our borders.
Go ahead, Ford.
A couple points about this Colorado poll. One, it doesn't matter on the GOP side, and I'll tell you why, because the Colorado caucus violates the RNC delegate rules, so it absolutely means nothing if you wind up winning Colorado. What does matter, though, is on the general election side, and four candidates are crushing Hillary Clinton, and she's doing terribly. In fact, I would argue these numbers where four of them are leading her by 11 or more points is the best news I have heard this cycle thus far, because if the Republican nominee is going to win the presidency in 2016, the road goes through Colorado.
Yes, Scottie Nell, maybe you'll have kinder words for Colorado when you take a look at those numbers, the Quinnipiac poll, as she trails, and Ford mentioned this, she trails all those leading Republican candidates by large margins. And when you consider that in 2008 and 2012, Colorado went for the Democrats, what is this telling us about perhaps a change in partisan fortunes for the Republicans in the presidential column there?
I used to think that Minnesota was the most schizophrenic state politically. Colorado, I think, is taking that term for 2016 because it does hit both sides. I'm surprised that Hillary is doing so bad. I would have thought actually Bernie would be doing better, because when you're out there and you're in Boulder, and I've just spent some time recently on the Boulder campus, there is no more liberal mecca of the Midwest than Boulder, Colorado, and Denver. But it shows that those people are waking up, and I appreciate that. I think I agree. I can't believe I'm agreeing this much with Ford in one segment. We've got to stop. That I agree.
Well, let me say one more thing, Scottie Nell Hughes. The key for Colorado for Hillary Clinton is there's an outsized number of unmarried females, which is her target demographic. And if we're doing this well and we can hold this in, I'm very excited about 2016.
All right, we got a couple of minutes left. Let's take a look at what's going on in New Hampshire. Donald Trump tightening his grip there. He's at 23% in the latest poll, sponsored by Boston's NPR station, WBUR. So it's Trump at 23, Ben Carson 10 points back, tied with Marco Rubio, both checking in at 13%, Ted Cruz at 8%, Jeb Bush, John Kasich nodded at 7%, Chris Christie with 6%, and Rand Paul with 5%. Trump looking good there in the Granite State. Scottie, Nell, what's your takeaway from that? 30 seconds.
Well, that's real quick. Is Iowa, while it would have been nice to win that, if Trump wins that, then he's got the election. However, he was putting a lot of his bank into New Hampshire. Him doing this well shows that the rest of the candidates might not have a chance. After New Hampshire, it might already be over.
Yeah, what about Trump in New Hampshire?
I disagree with you, but I definitely think that Donald Trump needs to win New Hampshire. What's happened in New Hampshire is he's consolidated white working class men between the ages of 50 to 64. The question is, will the rest of the New Hampshire Republican electorate pick someone else? If they do, Trump might find himself in trouble, but right now he's sitting pretty good.
To be continued until we finally see those primaries early next year. Scottie, Nell, Hughes in Nashville. Ford O'Connell at Newsmax, Washington. Thanks so much for your time. You heard what they had to say. Agree or disagree? We'd love to get your comments. Send them to us here. NewsmaxTV.com/comments. Following the next break, we'll tackle the myths of income inequality as we check in, believe it or not, with someone from the University of Texas at Austin. That would be Ryan Streeter. Don't you hit the street. Stay right here. We're coming back.